She was setting the final platter of roasted prime rib on the dining room table when the phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was my husband, Jake. He should have been logging overtime hours at the office. "Hello?" I answered, hastily wiping my hands as I pressed the call button. "Laura, we need to talk." Jake's voice was as calm as if he were commenting on the weather. "Next week, Wednesday, the whole family is leaving for Maui. 1 week. I've already booked the plane tickets and the hotel." At that moment, without even realizing it, I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. This was the third time. Like the calm before a storm, my voice sounded strangely even. "Right? Your dad, your mom, your brother Patrick, and his fiancée Ashley, your aunt, and your cousin. 6 people." I deliberately used a cheerful tone. "The villa I booked only has 3 bedrooms, and if we squeeze too many people in, it will be a mess. So you don't come." I took a deep breath. My eyes scanned the table, loaded with 2 main courses and a soup, all meticulously prepared, everything Jake loved. Now all that food, along with my hopes, was destined for the garbage disposal. "I see. Well, have a wonderful time." My voice seemed a distant echo. "I knew you would understand, Laura. You're the most supportive." I could hear Jake's sigh of relief. "Oh, and while I'm gone, don't forget to water the garden flowers and my high-maintenance orchids." "Okay." I agreed. I hung up. I stood there, rooted to the spot. The phone screen went black, like a light going out behind my eyes. The third time. 3 years of marriage, and not once had I been invited on this annual family trip. The first time, the excuse was that I had just suffered a miscarriage, and a long trip would be too much for me. The second, that my job was too demanding, and it would be too hard to request time off this year. This time, he hadn't even bothered to find a convincing excuse. I began to clear the table mechanically, scraping the untouched food into the trash can. Suddenly, my wrist trembled, and a platter slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Crash! I stared at the fragments scattered across the polished oak. How much they resembled me right now, like this marriage, brilliant on the outside, but shattering at the slightest contact. My phone rang again. It was the in-laws group chat. A message from my mother-in-law. "Guys, we're repeating Maui this year. Leaving Wednesday, so don't forget the sunblock. They say it's scorching hot there," followed by a flurry of celebration emojis. I stared intently at the words, "the whole family." My eyes welled up. To them, I wasn't family. I was just a stranger, an unpaid assistant. I pulled out the family photo they took last year in the Bahamas. In it, Jake had his arm wrapped around his brother Patrick's shoulder. My mother-in-law, in a flashy dress, sat centered, and my father-in-law, looking solemn, stood to the side. Alongside them were their cousin and Patrick's girlfriend at the time. All 7 were beaming, with the azure sea and palm trees in the background. That day, I was home alone, burning up with a fever. I called Jake, and he said, "Take some Tylenol and get some rest. You'll be fine. We're deep-sea diving and the signal is bad. Gotta go." And he hung up. I sank to the floor and began picking up the ceramic pieces one by one. I cut a finger and blood bloomed, but that wound was nothing compared to the pain in my soul. The phone rang again. It was a video call from Chloe, my best friend. I wiped my tears, fixed my expression as best I could, and answered. "Laura, you won't believe the obnoxious client who came into the firm today." Chloe's voice stopped abruptly. She squinted and brought her face closer to the screen. "What's wrong? Your eyes are red." "It's nothing. I was chopping onions and they started stinging." I tried to smile. "Don't lie to me. You think I've known you for over 10 years for nothing?" Chloe frowned. What has that idiot Jake done this time? Under her penetrating gaze, my defenses crumbled. I explained everything briefly, my voice getting lower and lower, almost a whisper. "I feel like I'm the laughingstock." The laughingstock? It sounds to me like Jake and his family are the ones making fools of themselves. "Laura, please wake up. These people don't consider you family." I fell silent. Deep down, I already knew it. I just didn't want to admit it. 3 years ago at our spectacular wedding, Jake knelt and promised me eternal happiness. The image was still vivid in my memory. How had we reached this point in the blink of an eye? Laura? Chloe's voice suddenly turned serious. Do you remember signing a prenuptial agreement? I nodded. It was a month before the wedding. Jake suddenly proposed a separation of assets, claiming it was a family tradition. Although I felt uncomfortable, I signed it to prove I wasn't after his money. And the house is in your name. The ownership is clear. It was your parents' wedding gift. We registered it as your separate property, only in your name. I frowned. Why do you ask? No reason, Chloe hesitated. I just want you to take better care of yourself. Hey, since his family is going away next week, why don't you come stay at my place for a few days so you're not alone? I politely declined her offer. After hanging up, I stood by the living room window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn that Jake maintained so meticulously. We bought this suburban estate when we got married. My parents paid the down payment, and I covered the renovation costs with years of savings. Jake's family contributed a minimal amount, but they insisted his name be on the deed. The excuse was that a man needed to maintain appearances. The night deepened. I showered and went to bed like an automaton. Jake wouldn't be home tonight either. He had late work. For the past 6 months, his overtime hours had become more frequent, and I had stopped asking. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, an idea crossed my mind. Did I really want to continue this marriage? For the past 3 years, I had strived to be a good wife and an exemplary daughter-in-law. I cared for my husband meticulously and even tolerated my brother-in-law's impertinence. And what had I received in return? Deliberate exclusion from the group chat, my husband's increasingly frequent absences, and an annual family trip from which I was always excluded. The phone lit up. A message from Jake. Honey, still awake? I won't be home next week, so lock the door securely. Oh, Mom wants a typical Maui souvenir. Buy some nice gift boxes tomorrow and leave them ready for her. Reading the message, I laughed until I cried. It was over. Truly over. How long did I plan to keep deceiving myself, Laura? I wiped my tears and texted Chloe. Do you have a window tomorrow? I need legal counsel now. The cold moon shone high in the sky. I knew some things were irreversible. The morning sun filtered through the bedroom curtains. I opened my eyes, but the other side of the bed was still empty. Jake predictably hadn't come home last night. It was the 7th time this month. I got up and opened the closet. My fingers brushed past countless dresses before stopping at an elegant suit jacket. I chose it deliberately today. Jake always said dresses made me look like a model wife. I washed my face and looked in the mirror. My 29-year-old face already reflected deep exhaustion. The fine lines under my eyes and the dull skin were a testament to 3 years of repressed life. I covered the traces of last night's tears with makeup. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Chloe's characteristic short hair and sharp gaze. She carried 2 coffees and a paper bag emanating a delicious pastry smell. I knew you hadn't had breakfast. As soon as I opened the door, she put the food in my hands. Americano with a splash of sugar-free milk and your favorite croissant. The intense aroma of the coffee comforted me. In this city, aside from the coffee shop owner, Chloe was the only one who remembered my preferences. Jake didn't even know I was allergic to peanuts. Last year, at a family gathering, he insisted on serving me a salad full of nuts, saying it was delicious. Tell me, what legal counsel do you need? Chloe pulled her laptop from her bag and got straight to the point. I stirred my coffee and began to speak, weighing each word. If I wanted a divorce, how could I protect my rights? Chloe's eyes gleamed. Finally, you've come to your senses. She quickly opened several files. First, we need to clarify your marital property situation. You said the house is in your name, right? Yes, it was my parents' wedding gift. I registered it as my sole property. But after we got married, Jake insisted I add his name. For appearances, he said, and I, being weak, agreed. I offered a bitter smile. Chloe's forehead wrinkled. When was that? About 6 months after the wedding. He asked me every day that his colleagues' wives had done it, that he was the only one who hadn't, and was embarrassed at the office. Chloe's fingers flew across the keyboard. This is a bit complicated, but since it's separate property and you paid the down payment, that part and the appreciation belong to you. Who paid for the renovation? Mostly me. With the money I saved working, about $70,000. Jake's family contributed about $15,000. Do you have proof? I nodded. I kept the renovation contract and all the receipts. Chloe seemed satisfied. Next is gathering evidence. Do you know exactly how much Jake earns? The question left me blank. Jake's income? Since we married, we've managed our own money. He had given me an approximate figure, but I never asked for details. He probably earns about $100,000 a year. He transfers $1,000 a month to me for household expenses. The rest we manage separately. Chloe's eyebrows nearly met. What? You've been married for 3 years and still have separate accounts, and I pay the mortgage? My voice trailed off. Jake said he had to invest his money and that his parents are getting old, so he needed a cushion for medical expenses. Laura, Chloe pounded the table. Don't you realize they are scamming you? That is not a normal marriage. My eyes filled with tears again. Telling it, even I thought it sounded ridiculous. To others, I was the lady living in a luxury suburban estate, driving a high-end car. But the reality was, I had to think twice before buying a decent coat. Meanwhile, Jake bought his mother a $20,000 gold bracelet without batting an eye. We need to find out his true financial situation, Chloe said. Seriously, do you have access to his computer or documents? The office is always locked. He says he has confidential client information. Suddenly, I remembered something. But I have an emergency key. I could go in when he's not there. Be careful. You can't let him catch you, she warned. The crucial things are bank statements, investment records, and... She paused. Do you have any proof of infidelity? My heart skipped a beat. Infidelity? The possibility I had tried to ignore with all my might was finally surfacing. When Chloe left, I stood in front of the office door with the key in my hand. When we married, we promised to respect our privacy. That's why I had never entered his personal space without permission. Today I had to break that rule. The sound of the key in the lock seemed abnormally loud. As I opened the door, a faint smell of men's cologne hit me. The office was impeccably tidy. The law books on the shelf were arranged by height. The desk had not a speck of dust. I checked the drawers. The top one held a few unimportant work documents. The middle one, several photo albums. I opened them randomly. They only contained photos of Jake and his family. Barely a few where the two of us appeared together. The bottom drawer was locked. That anomaly only increased my suspicions. Looking around, my eyes fell on a small safe behind the bookshelf. Jake had bought it last year to store important documents. I tried the date of our anniversary. Error. His birthday. Error. Finally, I entered his mother's birthday. The safe clicked open. Inside was a stack of well-organized documents. On top of everything, a copy of the property deed. Opening it, I froze. It was the deed to my house. But in the owner's section, it clearly read Jake Williams and Laura Miller under a co-ownership regime. I perfectly remembered that initially, it was just about adding his name with a minority share. I kept searching and found several bank statements. The balance of Jake's account stunned me. It wasn't the $150,000 he had told me, but nearly $1. $5 million. Furthermore, there were regular monthly transfers between $3,000 and $15,000 to a certain Samantha. At the bottom was an elegant velvet jewelry box. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a diamond necklace I had never seen. The receipt was still there. The price exceeded $25,000. The purchase date was my birthday last year, but my gift had been a simple bouquet of roses. Under the box was another photo. Jake was embracing a young woman by a resort pool. They were wearing matching swimwear and smiling radiantly. On the reverse, written with my love, Samantha, in Maui, August 2023. Just the week he claimed he had a business trip. My world crashed down. So many late nights, the evasive excuses, the unexplained expenses, everything fit. The phone vibrating nearly made me drop the photo. It was Jake. "Honey, I won't be home for dinner tonight. Company party." I stared at the message and then looked at his WhatsApp profile picture. He was seated at a luxury restaurant. The wine glass and a hand with red-painted nails on the other side of the table were reflected in the lens. Zooming in, the silhouettes of him and a long-haired woman were visible in the window's reflection. In that moment, my mind became strangely clear. All my doubts and self-blame had found an answer. I wasn't paranoid or overly sensitive. I was simply an idiot who was being cheated on. Calmly, I photographed all the evidence and sent it to Chloe's encrypted email. Then I put everything back in place. I closed the safe and left the office. At 10 p.m., Jake arrived home smelling of alcohol. Sitting on the living room sofa, I watched him with an empty gaze as he stumbled, taking off his shoes. "Honey, still awake?" He approached to kiss me, but I turned my head. "You smell of perfume." "I don't like it," I said flatly. Jake paused for a moment and then laughed. "It was work, honey. Must have picked up a little. Those clients wear strong cologne." "Oh, really?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Is that Samantha also a client?" Jake's expression froze. His drunken haze seemed to vanish halfway. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing. I just thought of it. You must be exhausted, having to entertain that client so many times a month." Jake's face turned from red to white. "Laura, listen to me. I can explain." "You don't need to explain anything." I cut him off. "I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow I have to go buy those boxes for your mother's gifts. You hadn't forgotten, had you?" I turned and went into the bedroom. Jake remained alone in the living room, looking completely bewildered. As I closed the door, I leaned against it. I heard his nervous footsteps outside and his voice whispering on the phone. He was undoubtedly alerting Samantha. The phone lit up. A message from Chloe. "Evidence received. With this, he's lost. Come to the firm tomorrow, and we'll discuss details. And this time, listen to everything I say." I replied with an okay, and deleted the conversation history. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My mind was strangely calm. The old Laura would have spent the night crying, but the current one only felt like laughing. Jake carefully opened the door and lay down beside me as if nothing had happened. In the dark, I could hear him deliberately holding his breath. He was pretending to be asleep. "Jake!" I broke the silence suddenly. "What hotel are you going to in Maui?" His body visibly tensed. A normal resort, one the company has a deal with." "Oh, really?" I chuckled lightly. "It's not the Ritz-Carlton Maui again, is it? I hear the villas with private pools are awfully expensive." Jake jumped up. "Have you been spying on me?" "Spying?" I turned to look at him. The moonlight illuminated his face, distorted by panic and anger. "Do I need to? You forgot to block me on Facebook. November last year. Check in at the Ritz-Carlton Maui. By the way, the Cartier necklace in the photo was gorgeous." Jake's face twisted. "Laura, how dare you look at my phone? Compared to you cheating on me looking at your phone isn't such a big deal, is it?" I got up and turned on the bedside lamp. 3 years of marriage with separate accounts. Me like an idiot serving your entire family, and it turns out you had someone else on the side. Honestly, Jake, you don't disappoint." Jake's face went pale, and he suddenly grabbed a pillow and hurled it against the wall with all his might. "Stop it. You think I did this because I wanted to? I'm sick of seeing that long face every day when I come home. Samantha is 100 times more affectionate than you. She knows how to make a man happy." I watched his mad outburst in silence. Suddenly, it all seemed so ridiculous. This was the man I had defied my parents to marry, a coward who, after being unfaithful, still had the audacity to blame others. "Fine, let's get divorced," I said lightly. "You go with Samantha, and I'll live my life peacefully." "Divorce?" Jake let out a laugh as if he'd heard the joke of the century. "In your dreams, half of this house is mine. If you divorce, what are you going to live on? With your small salary, you can't even afford the mortgage." So that was it. He had it all calculated. He was sure I would never dare ask for a divorce. Seeing his smug face, I started laughing. Well, we'll see. Jake hadn't expected that reaction and was left speechless. I lay back down, turned off the light, and turned my back to him. I felt his gaze of confusion and anger fixed on my back in the darkness. Laura, he finally ground out through clenched teeth. Don't even think about doing anything stupid. I've had my eye on this house for a while. My brother Patrick is getting married and needs a place. So that was it. I closed my eyes, my nails dug into my palms. The whole family had been planning this for a long time, eating my food, living in my house, and eventually taking it from me to house the brother-in-law. Jake started snoring. I didn't sleep all night. At dawn, I quietly got up. I gathered a few essentials and important documents and slipped out of the house. The morning air was particularly fresh. I took a deep breath and called Chloe. Chloe, I've decided I'm going to get back everything that's mine. On the other end of the line, Chloe's voice was full of determination. That's the spirit. I'm waiting for you at the firm. The war has begun. I hung up and hailed a taxi. In the rearview mirror, I watched the estate where I had lived for 3 years grow smaller and smaller. This time I would not falter. Chloe's law firm was on the 28th floor of a glass tower in downtown Manhattan. I sat in the conference room. In front of me, Chloe had printed all the evidence. The situation is worse than I thought, she said, adjusting her glasses. According to these bank movements, in the last 2 years, Jake has transferred a total of $330,000 to that Samantha. This is a clear act of dissipation of marital assets. I nodded silently. My fingers unconsciously traced those cold figures. $330,000, the equivalent of several years of my salary, and he had given it away so easily to another woman. But the most serious thing is this. Chloe unfolded a sheaf of papers. I checked Jake's credit history. 3 months ago, he applied for an $800,000 loan. Purpose: home renovation, but there were no recent renovation plans for your house. Right? I suddenly looked up. He wasn't planning to tell you, Chloe said knowingly. That money, 1 week after entering his account, was transferred to Samantha in 5 installments. I believe that jerk bought that woman a house. My voice trembled. Do you really think so? It's highly likely. Chloe nodded. But that's not the most urgent problem. Look at this. She opened a digital file. It contained a transcript of the WhatsApp conversations between Jake and his brother Patrick. I got this through a special channel, Chloe explained. It's hard to use as direct evidence in a trial, but it's enough to know what they were planning. The transcript read, Bro, did you tell your wife about the house mortgage? Patrick asked. Not yet. I plan to tell her after the trip. She's been acting weird lately. I think she suspects Samantha. Then what? We have to put down the deposit for the condo. My fiancé, Ashley, and I saw it next week. Don't rush. My name is on the deed, too. Even if she objects, she can't do anything. If she makes it difficult, I'll tell Mom to talk to her. Mom always gets through to her. I stared at the screen. I felt like a rock was crushing my chest. They had been planning for a long time to mortgage my house to buy an apartment for my brother-in-law. Legally, to establish a mortgage on co-owned property, the consent of only one owner is sometimes enough, Chloe said. Seriously, if they act first, you will find yourself in a very unfavorable situation. So, what do? I clenched my fists. Do I have to stand idly by? Of course not. A sharp light gleamed in Chloe's eyes. We have to act first. Your parents paid the down payment, and you paid for most of the renovation. You have proof of everything. We can argue that Jake is the primary cause of the marriage breakdown and request a new division of assets. I thought for a moment, and suddenly something occurred to me. Chloe, what if I could prove that the co-ownership deed was forged by Jake? Chloe's eyes lit up. Do you have proof? I'm not sure, but I clearly remember that initially, it was co-ownership with shares. Also, the stamp and signature on the deed in the safe looked slightly different. This could be our turning point, Chloe exclaimed, pounding the table excitedly. If we prove the deed was falsified, Not only would the mortgage be void, but Jake could face criminal charges. We drew up a general plan. First, I had to secretly gather more evidence. Second, quickly verify the authenticity of the deed. And finally, prepare the divorce petition. As I left the firm, Chloe gave me a set of keys. It's a small apartment I own. It's empty right now. Stay there for the time being. Don't go back to the house. A corner Jake could do anything. I hugged her gratefully. Leaving the building, the sunlight dazzled me. My phone rang. A call from Jake. "Laura, where have you gone?" Jake's voice was laced with anger. "My mother called me. She says you haven't sent her the gift boxes yet. She needs them for tomorrow." I almost laughed. With everything going on, his first reaction was to scold me for not having run an errand for his mother. "I'm out. I have some urgent matters to resolve," I said calmly. "The boxes are ordered. They will be delivered directly to your mother's house this afternoon." Jake seemed confused. He hadn't expected me to be so cooperative. Okay, fine. Hey, about last night?" "Last night?" I asked deliberately. "You were very drunk. You kept talking nonsense." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Yeah, I was very drunk. I don't remember anything." "Well, when are you coming home?" "I think it'll take a while. Something urgent came up at work." "Don't wait up for me." I invented an excuse and hung up. I went straight to the county recorder's office with a copy of the original deed and my ID. I successfully checked the house's registration history. Indeed, it clearly stated co-ownership with shares. Laura Miller 70%, Jake Williams 30%. However, the current deed indicated a 50-50 co-ownership. That meant Jake had falsified the documents somehow. I contained my euphoria, immediately took a photo, and sent it to Chloe. Bingo! The bastard falsified the type of co-ownership. This time he's finished. "Great!" Chloe replied instantly. Now, I needed to obtain the original of that falsified deed. It wouldn't be easy. Jake would undoubtedly hide it consciously. I decided to risk it and return to the house one more time. At 4 p.m. I took advantage of Jake being in a meeting at the office to return. As soon as I opened the door, I noticed something was wrong. The living room was rummaged through, and the drawers of my dresser were wide open. Someone had been looking for something. I quietly went upstairs. I heard a noise in the office. Through the crack in the door, I saw Jake sweating profusely, rummaging through papers. He kept cursing softly. He had come home earlier than expected to look for the deed. I crept downstairs and deliberately slammed the front door shut. "Honey, I'm home." A startled sound came from upstairs, followed by Jake's voice, trying to sound calm. "Oh, hey, honey. I was in the office looking for some papers." I went up and opened the office door. Jake stood by the desk, forcing a smile, but the drops of sweat on his forehead and his messy hair betrayed his nervousness. "Why are you back so early?" I asked, feigning concern. "Oh, nothing much to do at the office." "Hey, have you seen the house deed? I need some documents to apply for a loan at work." Just as I expected. Inside, I smiled coldly, but outwardly I looked bewildered. "It's not in the safe." I looked and it's not there. Jake said nervously, "You didn't put it somewhere else, did you?" "Think hard." I pretended to think, and then I said, "Remember last month they asked us to update the owner's details at the condo association office? I took it to make a photocopy and well, my mother has it. She said she wanted to see it and I left it with her." Jake's face went white as paper. "What? How could you give something so important to someone else?" "My mother is someone else," I retorted. "Besides, my name is on the deed, too. What's the problem with my own family having it?" Jake was speechless. A vein throbbed on his forehead. "Go get it right now. I need it urgently for work. My mother went on a trip. She won't be back until next month," I said, blinking innocently. "Are you in such a hurry? Well, apply for the loan with the apartment you have in your name." Jake had a small apartment in his name as separate property that he rented out. Of course, he didn't want to touch his own assets. "Forget it. I'll find another way," he snapped irritably. Suddenly, he remembered something. Hey, do you really not remember anything I said last night? You said a lot of things. You talked about Samantha, about Maui, about a necklace. I watched his face harden, and then I laughed. Just kidding. You didn't say anything. You slept like a log. Jake's expression of relief was worth framing. He came closer to hug me. Honey, I've been very busy lately, and I've neglected you. When I get back from the trip, we'll spend time together. Just the two of us. I skillfully dodged his arms. Hurry up and pack. You have an early flight tomorrow. Jake withdrew his arms awkwardly and went upstairs, watching his back. I knew I had to keep up the pretense. The most important thing now was to reassure him and buy time. After dinner, Jake received a call and rushed out, surely to meet Samantha and plan their strategy. I immediately searched the office thoroughly. Finally, on the highest shelf inside a thick manual of criminal law, I found the falsified deed. I quickly photographed it as evidence and put it back in place. Just as I was about to leave, an envelope in the desk drawer caught my attention. Opening it, I found, to my surprise, an already drafted mortgage loan agreement. The house appraisal was $1. $2 million, the loan amount $800,000, and the purpose, joint family investment. The most terrifying thing was that, in the borrower's signature box, my signature was very convincingly forged. It was not mine. Jake had forged my signature. With trembling hands, I photographed all the evidence and carefully returned them to their place. Just as I was about to leave the office, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Laura. Her voice was still arrogant. The gift boxes are coming tomorrow, right? They need to be the good ones with golden details. Don't mess up. Yes, mother-in-law, don't worry. Everything is ready, I replied, repressing the nausea. She continued with her orders. While we're traveling, don't forget to water the houseplants once a week. Jake's orchids are very expensive. Oh, and I have some pickles in the fridge that I made. They'll be ready next week, so take them out and put them in the sun to dry. I responded with monosyllables while looking at the clock. It was already 10 p.m. Jake still hadn't returned. I hung up and decided not to wait any longer. I gathered some clothes and important documents and left the estate for Chloe's apartment. On the way, I called my parents and explained the situation broadly. Contrary to what I expected, my father didn't scold me for not listening to him. Instead, he said firmly, "Daughter, whatever decision you make, your family will always be by your side. We gave you that house. Don't let that man's family take it from you." On the other end of the line, I heard my mother crying. "My poor silly girl, how could you go through all this without telling us sooner?" After hanging up, I finally broke down. I cried floods in the back seat of the taxi. I wasn't fighting alone. My pride had simply prevented me from showing vulnerability to my family. Chloe's apartment was small but cozy. I took a hot shower and, lying in bed, reviewed my findings. Jake's crimes were increasingly obvious. Infidelity, concealment of assets, forgery of documents, and signature on a contract. Any of them was enough for him to pay a high price before the law. The phone lit up. A WhatsApp message from Jake. "Honey, an unforeseen business trip came up. I'll be out for a few days. I'll meet the family directly in Maui. We'll talk about the house when I get back." I smiled scornfully and didn't reply. I opened Facebook and saw that Samantha had posted something new. "Thank you for coming. The best gift." The attached photo showed a Cartier bracelet and a man's hand. The watch on that man's wrist was the one I had given Jake for his birthday last year. Calmly, I took a screenshot, saved it, and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, the war would enter a new phase, and this time there would be no mercy. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains. As I opened my eyes, it took me a few seconds to realize where I was. Chloe's apartment was small, but I had slept better than I had in the last 3 years. I had 3 missed calls on my phone, all from Jake, and a WhatsApp message. "Why aren't you picking up the phone?" "I'm getting on the plane," locked the house door securely. I smiled disdainfully and blocked his number and all his profiles. I got up and opened the fridge. Chloe's refrigerator, a workaholics, was empty except for some water bottles and expired yogurt. After showering, I made myself coffee, turned on the laptop, and started planning. Last night, Chloe had sent me a detailed list of actions. The first was to secure my personal assets. I logged into my online banking and checked all my accounts. Luckily, my salary was deposited into an account Jake didn't know about. In the last 3 years, I had managed to save almost $60,000. In our joint account, there was $35,000 in savings. In theory, we were each entitled to half. I smiled bitterly. Jake had already sent his lover over $300,000. I called the bank and, alleging possible suspicious activity, temporarily froze the joint account. That way, Jake couldn't withdraw money during his trip. The next thing was the most important. The house. Following Chloe's advice, I had to report the loss of the deed and quickly request a duplicate. But first, I had to make sure Jake couldn't interfere. The phone rang. It was my father. Daughter, I spoke with my old friend, Attorney Thompson. He has a lot of experience in real estate litigation. He says we have to sue Jake for document forgery as soon as possible and at the same time request urgent precautionary measures. A lump formed in my throat. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. Nonsense. My father's voice was firm. The important thing now is that you recover what is yours. Your mother and I are coming to New York this afternoon. We'll stay at a hotel. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Hanging up, I felt my eyes moisten. My parents would always be my refuge, and I had alienated myself from them for 3 years because of an insignificant man. After getting ready, I went directly to the county recorder's office. With a copy of the original deed and my ID, I successfully completed the lost deed report procedure. The clerk informed me that the new deed would take about 7 business days to be issued. If someone tries to mortgage the property with the reported lost deed, would it be valid? I asked cautiously. The clerk shook his head. Once the loss notice is published, the previous deed immediately loses its validity. But if you are concerned about the security of your home, you can request a preventive annotation prohibiting disposition. That way, for a period, no one can carry out any transactions with that property. That was exactly what I needed. I immediately filled out the application. In the motive section, I wrote clearly, alleged document forgery by co-owner. Leaving the recorder's office, I sighed with relief. The house was safe for now. No matter how many banks Jake went to with that falsified deed, he wouldn't get a penny. The phone rang, an unknown number. When I answered, a voice introduced itself as the real estate agent from Sunshine Realty. Miss Laura Miller, I'm calling about the sale listing for your house. We have a buyer willing to pay $1. $15 million. When could we meet to negotiate? I was stunned. Excuse me? I haven't put my house up for sale. On the other end of the line, the agent also seemed confused. But Mr. Jake Williams came in yesterday with the deed and a photocopy of your ID, saying you had both decided to list the house for sale. I felt my blood boil. Jake, that bastard, had gotten ahead of me. Listen closely, Miss Agent, I said, containing my rage. That listing is fraudulent. The deed has been reported lost, and a new one is being issued. If your agency proceeds with this operation without following legal procedures, prepare to receive a lawsuit from my attorneys. I immediately hung up and called Chloe. Hearing it, she was furious. That Jake is a scoundrel. Laura, we have to move faster. What do I do now? I asked. He might have contacted other real estate agencies. First, we need to notify the main real estate agencies and banks that the house is in litigation. Second, sue Jake immediately for forgery of a public document and signature. And finally, Chloe paused. What if you sell the house? Sell it? The idea surprised me. I had invested so much effort in that house. From the blueprints to the material selection, every corner had my touch. But thinking about it, what was the point of continuing to live there, facing unpleasant memories every day? I'll sell it, I said firmly, but after I regain full ownership. Good decision, Chloe nodded. Hey, your parents have arrived. Attorney Thompson wants to meet with us this afternoon. At 3 p.m. I met with my parents and Mr. Thompson in a hotel meeting room. My mother, seeing me, hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "You're too thin." Mr. Thompson was a sharp-looking middle-aged man. He meticulously reviewed all the evidence I had collected, nodding constantly. "The evidence is very strong. Mr. Williams's conduct clearly constitutes document forgery and fraud. He could face up to 3 years in prison." Prison? I shook my head. "I just want a quick divorce and to recover my assets. I don't want to take this to criminal court. Despite everything, it's been 3 years. Mr. Thompson understood my position and nodded. "Then we will focus on the civil route. According to the civil code, the fact that Mr. Williams has cohabitated with another person as if she were his spouse and donated a large amount of money during the marriage is a serious cause for divorce. In the division of assets, he could receive a smaller share or even nothing. We agreed on the legal strategy. First, request precautionary measures to freeze Jake's assets. Then, file the divorce petition requesting the redistribution of the house ownership and compensation for the marital assets Jake dissipated." "There's one more problem, Mr. Thompson said, adjusting his glasses. "Do you know Mr. Williams's current location? The court needs to notify him of the lawsuit." I opened WhatsApp and went into the in-laws group chat. Although I had the notification silenced, I could see the photos they were uploading. The most recent was a family photo on a Maui beach. Jake was hugging Samantha around the waist, beaming. The caption read, "Family photo. Only missing the daughter-in-law." My hands trembled so much I could barely hold the phone. So that was it. Jake's family trip was planned from the start to bring Samantha, and I, his legal wife, had been completely excluded. "They are at the Ritz-Carlton Maui," I said calmly, handing the phone to Mr. Thompson. The photo showed the time and location. Mr. Thompson photographed the evidence and asked me, "Miss Miller, when do you plan to retrieve your belongings from the house?" "I'm going to get everything today," I said decisively. If Jake dared to take his lover on a trip, passing her off as family, I no longer had to maintain appearances. Returning to the house, I began systematically packing my belongings. My career books in the office, the clothes and shoes in the walk-in closet, the dinnerware I had meticulously chosen in the kitchen. 3 years of marriage had accumulated many things. While packing, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw an unknown woman with a folder in her hand. "Is this the residence of Mr. Jake Williams?" she asked politely. "I'm the account manager from ABC Bank. Mr. Williams asked me to pick up some documents." A bank employee. Jake's reaction had been faster than I thought. I opened the door but didn't let her pass. "What documents?" "Mr. Williams told me you were already aware. The property deed for the house and your original ID." Her gaze scanned the house interior over my shoulder. I almost laughed with rage. Jake, from afar, sending a bank employee to my house to try and take the documents. "I'm sorry, but I don't know anything about that," I said coldly. "And the deed is not here." The woman looked confused. "But Mr. Williams, it doesn't matter what he told you," I interrupted her. "I suggest you check the latest notices from the county recorder's office. This house is currently in litigation, and any bank that grants a mortgage on it will have to assume the legal consequences." Her expression changed, and she hurried away. I closed the door and immediately sent an email to the credit departments of the major banks, officially informing them that the house was in litigation and that any loan application on this asset would be void. By sunset, I finished packing all my things. The moving truck parked at the door. The movers began loading the boxes. I took one last look at the place I once called home. I didn't feel a trace of nostalgia. Wait, something occurred to me. I went back to the bedroom and took a small box from the nightstand. Inside were a pair of pearl earrings, the only keepsake I had left from my maternal grandmother. In 3 years, I hadn't worn them for fear of losing them. Now they finally returned to their owner. I locked the front door and handed the key to the community security guard, informing him of my move. I asked him that any matter related to the house should be handled through my attorney. The guard had known me since the day I moved in. "Ma'am, has something happened?" he asked hesitantly. "From now on, call me Laura, please." I corrected him with a smile. Thank you for everything, officer. I drove to the hotel where my parents were staying. I felt lighter than ever. On the way, I received a message from Chloe. Order for precautionary measures approved. All bank accounts in Jake's name have been seized. We also published the lost deed notice in the local legal journal. It is now legally effective. I thanked her and called overseas. On the other end of the line was Emily, my roommate from my student days in London, now a senior executive at a multinational corporation. Emily, it's been a while. Emily's voice sounded full of energy. Hey, is that position you mentioned at the Singapore headquarters still open? I looked ahead and asked with a firm voice, I think I need a fresh start. A week later, I was sitting in Attorney Thompson's office reviewing the newly drafted divorce petition. The document detailed the serious causes attributable to Jake. Marital cohabitation with another person, document forgery, dissipation of marital assets. Each point was supported by strong evidence. The court has accepted the petition. The notification will be urgently sent to the hotel in Maui where Mr. Williams is staying, Mr. Thompson said, handing me another stack of papers. This is the order for precautionary measures. All bank accounts, stocks, and real estate in Mr. Williams's name have been seized. I nodded and turned to the last page. Jake's reaction was more virulent than I imagined. The same day he received the court notification, he tried to return from Maui, but with his credit cards blocked, he couldn't even buy a plane ticket. In the end, he had to borrow money from his brother. He must be back in New York by now, Mr. Thompson warned me. Do you think you need to lay low for a while? No. I shook my head. It's time to face him face to face. I had barely finished speaking when my phone began ringing frantically. Jake's name flashed on the screen. It was the 10th number he had used since I blocked him. I pressed the call button and activated the speaker. Laura, have you lost your mind? Jake's shout resonated in the office. How dare you sue me and seize my accounts? Mr. Williams, I said calmly. I ask you to measure your words. My attorney is recording this conversation. There was a noticeable pause on the other side. Then his tone softened. Laura, honey, do we really have to go through this? We can sit down and talk things out calmly. I smiled disdainfully. When you forged the deed and my signature on the mortgage contract, why didn't you think of talking to me? When you took your lover on a trip, passing her off as your family, why didn't you think of talking? It's all a misunderstanding, Jake hurried to explain. Samantha is just a distant cousin. The family photo thing was a joke, and the deed could have been a court error. We can go correct it. Mr. Williams? I cut short his clumsy lies. I'll see you in court. And I hung up. Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly. Very well managed. Now he'll go all out. We need to be prepared. Indeed. Less than half an hour later, I received an urgent message from Chloe. Jake went to the house with his parents. They're raising a scene at the security booth, trying to get them to change the lock. Mr. Thompson and I headed there immediately. From afar, we could already hear my mother-in-law's shrill voice. My son owns this house. Why won't you let him in? Did that woman bribe you, officer? The guard seemed very flustered. Ma'am, Miss Miller has filed a formal lost deed report, and a new legal deed is being issued. Legally, at this moment, she is the only one with rights to the house. That's ridiculous, my father-in-law shouted, pounding the counter. Half of that house belongs to my son. Who does that Laura think she is, not letting him into his own home? I took a deep breath, opened the door, and walked in. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, it's been a while. How was the trip to Maui? That family photo was beautiful. The three turned in unison. Their faces were a sight to behold. Her face was as purple as a pig's liver. My mother-in-law looked like she wanted to eat me alive. Laura. My mother-in-law made a grab for me, trying to get her hands around my neck. How dare you, you ungrateful woman, treat my son like this, Mr. Thompson stepped in, blocking her way. Ma'am, I must ask you to control yourself. Assaulting someone is a crime. We're recording everything. My mother-in-law stopped her hand in midair. She paled and pulled it back. Well, well. So now you bring lawyers to confront your in-laws, Laura. Jake said, pushing his mother aside and grinding his teeth. What exactly do you want? It's very simple. I looked him right in the eye. I want a divorce and to get back all the assets that belong to me. Don't even dream about it, Jake shouted. My name is on the deed too. Don't think you're going to keep everything. Oh, really? I pulled a folder out of my purse. This is the original registration from the county recorder. The house is in co-ownership with shares. My share is 70% and yours is 30%. It's clearly specified. The document you falsified already constitutes a crime. Jake's face went white as a sheet. That's a lie. And that's not all. I kept going. You forged my signature on a mortgage contract and transferred $330,000 to your lover. All of this is serious grounds for divorce. According to the law, not only would you not be entitled to any part of the house, but you might also have to pay me compensation. My mother-in-law couldn't take it anymore. That can't be. My son has been supporting you for years, and this is how you repay him, biting the hand that feeds you? Supporting me? I almost laughed. Mother-in-law, for 3 years we had separate accounts. The mortgage, electricity, water, community fees, I paid it all myself. Your son gave me $1,000 a month for expenses, an amount that didn't even cover his own food. My mother-in-law was speechless. My father-in-law looked at me with narrowed eyes. Laura, we're family. There's no need to go to these extremes. Jake made a mistake, but you haven't done everything right either. A man can make a small mistake sometimes. A small mistake. I cut him off. Is forging documents a small mistake? Is dissipating assets a small mistake? Is taking his lover on a trip and pretending she's his wife a small mistake? Jake suddenly lunged, trying to grab the folder, but Mr. Thompson stopped him. He looked like an animal trapped in a corner. Laura, don't push me. I know a lot of people. I can make sure you don't find a job anywhere in New York. Threatening the opposing party, Mr. Thompson said calmly, pressing the record button on his phone. Mr. Williams, this recording will be very damaging evidence against you. Jake finally realized how serious the situation was. His attitude did a complete 180. Laura, honey, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I really did. Give me another chance. I'll leave Samantha. From now on, I'll do whatever you say. Seeing him cry only made me feel disgusted. There was a time when that same helpless look would have softened my heart, and I would have forgiven his betrayals and lies over and over again. It's too late, Jake, I said calmly. I've given you too many chances. I just want to end this marriage as quickly as possible. Don't even dream about it, he suddenly shouted. I'm going to drag this lawsuit out as long as I can. Let's see who lasts longer. You don't get to decide that, Mr. Thompson said, holding up another folder. This is the evidence Miss Miller has compiled about your marital cohabitation with Miss Samantha. It includes bank transfers, intimate photos, conversations. If they're presented in court, not only will the divorce process be sped up, but you might have to pay compensation for emotional distress. Jake slumped into a chair like a balloon that had lost all its air. My mother-in-law tried to say something else, but my father-in-law stopped her. They both finally realized that their precious son had run headfirst into a brick wall. I'm giving you 3 days, I said, standing up. If you agree to a divorce by mutual consent, the house is mine, and the rest of the assets will be divided according to the law. If you want to keep fighting, we'll see each other in court, but be prepared to face all the legal consequences. Leaving the security booth, I breathed a sigh of relief. The sun felt warm on my face. My phone rang. It was an email from Emily with a job offer attached for the position of marketing director at the Singapore headquarters. The salary was 3 times what I was making now. Have you made a decision? Mr. Thompson asked me. I nodded. As soon as I get things settled here, I'm leaving for Singapore to start a new life. That's a smart decision. Mr. Thompson smiled. But Jake won't give up easily. Next time, he might resort to even dirtier tricks. I'll be ready, I said, looking at the house in the distance. It had once been my home, but now it was just a cold building. This time, I wouldn't back down. 3 days later, Jake, as I expected, hadn't signed the papers. Instead, he started a smear campaign. First, his relatives called me one after another, trying to talk me out of it. Then he posted a tearful update on Facebook, hinting that I had left him for a richer man in a better position. Finally, he showed up at my company and filed a complaint with Human Resources, accusing me of immoral conduct. Luckily, I was prepared. When HR called me in, I handed them my resignation letter and the job offer from the company in Singapore. At the same time, Chloe helped me release a statement on several news websites, explaining the truth and attaching some evidence of Jake's infidelity and document forgery. Public opinion immediately turned against him. Jake's social media was flooded with angry comments from internet users. Even Samantha's workplace was leaked online. They became the laughingstock of everyone. The most surprising thing was that some particularly motivated internet sleuth discovered that Samantha was dating 3 men at the same time. Jake became a national joke. "This time he's really finished," Chloe said, sounding satisfied. But we underestimated Jake's audacity. One rainy night, he broke into the house where I was packing up my things, along with his brother Patrick. He threatened to kill me if I didn't drop the lawsuit. "Laura," Jake reeked of alcohol, and his eyes were bloodshot. "You ruined my life, so I'm going to ruin yours." Patrick raised his phone and started recording. "Sister-in-law, you better drop the lawsuit, or this video of you and my brother reconciling will go viral tomorrow." I immediately understood their plan. They wanted to fake a forced reconciliation, maybe even a sexual assault. My heart was pounding, but I stayed calm. "Jake, do you know this is a crime?" "Crime?" Jake scoffed. "What crime can there be between a husband and wife? I'll tell you what crime there is. After tonight, whether you drop the lawsuit or not, you're finished." The moment he lunged at me, I pressed the panic button I kept in my pocket. A piercing alarm went off, and at the same time, 2 security guys from my old company who were guarding the house next door kicked down the door and subdued the Williams brothers. "The police are on their way," I said, looking coldly at Jake, who was now pinned to the floor. "This time, they're coming with charges of trespassing and attempted assault. You'll be in jail for a while." Jake's face went ashen, and Patrick started crying and begging. "Sister-in-law, it was my brother's idea. Please forgive us." In the distance, I could hear the approaching police sirens. I knew the charade was finally over. Jake's last-ditch effort had given me the chance to get rid of him for good. As the police were putting handcuffs on him, he suddenly turned and asked me, "Laura, did you ever love me?" I paused for a moment and then answered truthfully, "Yes, but now I only feel contempt." The police car drove away, and the rain stopped. I stood at the front door, looking at that place that held so many memories. I felt strangely at peace. Tomorrow, I would officially put the house on the market. Next week, the first divorce hearing would take place, and in a month, I'd be in Singapore, starting a completely new life. My phone rang. It was a text from my mother. "Daughter, I made your favorite stew. Come over for dinner." I smiled and texted back, "Of course, Mom. I'm on my way." A star was shining in the night sky. I knew it was my guide, showing me the way forward. The day before the first divorce trial hearing, I got a call from the police. Apparently, Jake had used the forged deed during his trip to Maui to get a $1.2 million loan from some small financial company. Now the company had discovered the forgery and reported him. "Miss Miller, you're one of the victims in this case. We need your cooperation in the investigation." The officer's voice was serious and respectful. I hung up and immediately called Mr. Thompson. Hearing the story, he couldn't help but laugh. "This Jake guy has dug his own grave. With a forgery of a public document of that magnitude, he's looking at a prison sentence of at least 3 years. Jail?" I asked. "Very likely," Mr. Thompson said confidently. "And this is great news for us in the divorce trial. The judge will recognize Jake's severe culpability, and the division of assets will definitely be in your favor." I should have been happy, but I felt a strange mix of emotions. It was ironic that 3 years of marriage were ending this way. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed with journalists. Since my story had gone viral, the case had become a media sensation. Someone had even created the hashtag Justice for Laura. Jake arrived late with his parents and his lawyer. In just 2 weeks, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was pale and unhealthy. When he saw me, a flicker of resentment flashed across his face, but it was quickly replaced by fear. He knew he was facing not only a divorce but also a criminal trial. The trial went surprisingly fast. Jake's lawyer tried to argue that the money transfers were just friendly gifts and that Samantha was a distant cousin. But when the judge saw the explicit photos and conversations, even the lawyer was at a loss for words. As for the forged deed and mortgage contract, Jake's defense had nothing to say. When the judge asked Jake why he had done it, his answer stunned the entire room. My brother was getting married, and his fiancée's family wasn't contributing anything. I just wanted to help my family out a little. And that's why you forged documents, a signature, and dissipated marital assets. The judge asked sternly, "Were you aware of the legal consequences of your actions?" Jake hung his head and said nothing. His mother in the gallery broke down, crying uncontrollably until a bailiff escorted her out. During a recess, Jake suddenly came up to me. "Laura, after the 3 years we were married, couldn't you just drop the lawsuit? I'll give you the house back. I don't want the money." "It's too late, Jake." I looked at him calmly. "I gave you your chance. You chose the worst possible path. Do you want to destroy me?" He shouted, his eyes bloodshot. "If I go to jail, my life is over. You brought it on yourself." I turned my back and stopped looking at him. The final sentence was even more favorable than I had expected. The judge granted the divorce. The house was awarded entirely to me. Jake was ordered to pay back the $330,000 he'd transferred to Samantha. 70% of the savings in Jake's name were awarded to me as compensation for damages. Furthermore, Jake had to pay my legal fees and court costs. As the judge read the sentence, Jake's face went ashen, and his mother in the gallery fainted. Journalists flashed their cameras nonstop. Under a barrage of flashes, the miserable image of the Williams family was immortalized forever. Leaving the courthouse, the sunlight was blinding. Mr. Thompson patted me on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Miss Miller. Justice has been served." "Thank you, counselor," I said sincerely. "Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to win so decisively." "What are your plans now? What will you do with the house?" "I'm going to sell it," I said without hesitating. "I've already put it in the hands of a real estate agent. Next week, I'm going to Singapore to start my new job at Apex Global." "That's a great decision." "Oh, are you planning to pursue the criminal case against Mr. Williams?" I thought for a moment. I don't want anything more to do with him. If he pleads guilty and returns the assets, I might drop the complaint, but whatever the justice system decides is up to them. "Understood. I'll take care of the following procedures." Mr. Thompson said goodbye. "I wish you all the best in your new life in Singapore." Back at the apartment I had temporarily rented, I started packing my suitcases. 3 years of marriage, and in the end, I only had 2 suitcases of luggage. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with congratulatory messages from my friends. I thanked everyone and turned off the phone. I enjoyed that rare moment of peace and quiet. That night, Chloe came over with a bottle of champagne to celebrate. "Wow, that jerk Jake is totally broke. What a satisfying ending." We toasted. The champagne bubbles tasted sweet on my tongue. Suddenly, Chloe turned serious. "Honestly, Laura, during these 3 years, my biggest worry has been you. I saw how you were losing yourself, how you stopped being the person you used to be." "I know," I said, gripping my glass. "Sometimes I wonder how I could have been so blind. There were so many red flags. Why did I keep ignoring them?" "For love, silly," Chloe sighed. "Love makes you blind. But luckily, you finally woke up." The next morning, I got a call from the real estate agent. The house had sold for $1. $25,100,000 over the market price. The buyer was a single mom who liked how close it was to schools and the style of the renovation. "The buyer wants to close as soon as possible. Would tomorrow work for you?" the agent asked cautiously. "No problem," I said. "We can finalize the paperwork tomorrow." Hanging up, I felt a huge wave of relief. That house, full of bad memories, was finally going to be a thing of the past. The deed signing was quick and painless. After signing the last document, the buyer, an elegant woman in her mid-40s, took my hand. "Laura, I saw the news. You were so brave. This house will be filled with love and laughter in my hands." My eyes welled up a little. "Thank you. That's exactly what that house needed." Leaving the notary's office, I decided to go back to the house one last time. The new owner was moving in the next day, so it would be empty. I opened the familiar front door and went inside. In the empty rooms, only my footsteps echoed. The sun was shining through the large windows, creating stripes of golden light on the floor. I walked through the house slowly. Memories flooded my mind like a tidal wave. The living room, Jake had once flipped the table over because he didn't like the meal I'd made. The study, he'd spent entire nights supposedly working when he was really on video calls with Samantha. The bedroom, sometimes when he was drunk he'd force me to. The kitchen, I had once thrown a big party for my parents there. The patio, drinking wine with my friends and talking late into the night. The garden, the roses I planted bloomed every year. "Goodbye," I whispered, gently closing the door behind me. This time I didn't look back. Leaving the neighborhood, I ran into Patrick, Jake's brother, at the entrance. He looked haggard and worn down. When he saw me, he seemed surprised and then rushed over to me. Laura, he stammered. Could you lend me some money? My brother's been arrested. My fiancé's family called off the engagement, and my mother's in the hospital with high blood pressure." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The Williams family still had the nerve to ask me for money. "Patrick," I said calmly, "do you even know that your brother forged my signature to mortgage the house so he could buy an apartment for you?" His face changed. I didn't know where the money came from." "You and your family are unbelievable," I said with contempt. "Your brother being in jail, your mother being in the hospital, and your wedding being canceled, that's karma. I'd advise you to worry about your own problems." With that, I turned and walked away. Patrick shouted angrily after me, "Laura, you're a cold, heartless woman. My brother was a fool to marry someone like you." I didn't turn around. I just waved my hand in a final goodbye. Back at the apartment, I finished packing. The HR department at the company in Singapore had sent me a welcome packet with information and tips for finding a place to live. Emily had also put together a detailed list of things I'd need. A new life was calling me. A bright and hopeful life. That night, my mother video called me. My father was standing beside her, peppering me with questions. They both insisted on coming with me to Singapore, but I wouldn't let them. "Mom, Dad, I'm not a little kid anymore," I said, laughing. "Besides, Singapore's an incredible country. You don't have anything to worry about. You'll always be our little girl," my mother said, wiping away a tear. "You're going so far away. Take good care of yourself." "I will," I promised her. "And nowadays, with how easy it is to travel, you can come visit me anytime you want." After I hung up, I stood by the window, looking out at the city where I'd lived for almost 10 years. Under the neon lights, how many stories of love and heartbreak were unfolding. Mine was just one more. The phone rang again. It was Chloe. "Laura, the court just notified me. That jerk Jake confessed. The prosecution is asking for 3 years. His lawyer told me he wants to see you one last time." "No," I said firmly. "I don't have anything else to say to him." "I knew it." Chloe laughed. "Do you have your tickets? Do you want me to take you to the airport tomorrow at 3 p.m.? You don't need to come. You know I hate goodbyes. Have a great trip." Suddenly, Chloe's voice cracked. "Call me often, and don't forget your friends when you find a new boyfriend." "What are you talking about? You're my best friend." I felt a lump in my throat. "As soon as I get settled in, I'll invite you to Singapore." The night wore on. I finished packing the last suitcase. I turned off the lights and lay down in bed. Tomorrow, at this time, I'd be 30,000 feet in the air, flying toward a completely new life. I closed my eyes, and the memories of the last 3 years played out in my mind like a slow-motion movie. Pain, betrayal, struggle, awakening. In the end, everything had become the force that drove me to grow. I remembered something I'd read somewhere. There are paths you must walk alone, tears you must wipe yourself, and pain you must endure in solitude. But when you overcome all that, you will find a better version of yourself. Tomorrow the sun would rise again, and I would no longer be the Laura who tolerated humiliation. Changi Airport, Singapore, a bustling hub of people. I pushed my luggage cart and stepped out into the arrival hall, where I saw Emily holding a sign with my name. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years. She had short hair and wore an elegant business suit. She seemed even more determined than she had back in the UK. Laura. She ran over and gave me an enthusiastic hug. Welcome to your new life. Emily helped me get settled into an apartment near the office and took me out to try authentic local Singaporean food. At the table, she cautiously asked me about my divorce. I gave her a brief summary. What a lowlife, she said. He should rot in jail. I smiled and shook my head. The past is the past. Now I just want to look forward. The new job was challenging but also very stimulating. As marketing director for the Asia-Pacific region, I was responsible for brand promotion in several countries. The busy schedule left me no time to think about the past. Every day was full and meaningful. A month later, I got an email from Mr. Thompson. Jake had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for forgery and fraud. At the same time, the court had executed the divorce judgment. The savings in Jake's name had been transferred to my account. Samantha had also been ordered to return some of the money. The email included a link to a news article from the crime section of a national newspaper with the headline, "Husband's Deed Forgery Fraud, Wife's Swift Divorce." In the photo, Jake was surrounded by reporters, looking pathetic. I calmly closed the email. I felt nothing. On the weekend, I attended a yacht party in Marina Bay organized by the company. The night view of Singapore was a stunning spectacle of lights. My colleagues were toasting and laughing. Jackson, the marketing VP, came over to me with a glass of champagne. "Laura, I heard you left an important position in the US to come to Singapore. That was brave." I smiled, but didn't say anything. He didn't know that I hadn't come for my career. I came to escape a past I never wanted to go back to. 3 months went by, and I'd fully adjusted to the rhythm of life in Singapore. Work was going well, and I'd made new friends. Sometimes, I'd post pictures of Singapore food and landscapes on Instagram. Chloe was always the first to like and comment. "So jealous," she'd write. One Tuesday morning while I was working on the quarterly report, my phone rang. It was an unknown number with a US area code. "Hello?" I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Is this Laura Miller?" A weak, feminine voice said. I almost dropped the phone. It was my ex-mother-in-law. How had she gotten my new number? "This is Jake's mother. What do you want?" I asked coldly. "Laura," her voice broke. "I was wrong. Everything that happened was my fault. Please forgive Jake. He's been sick twice already in jail. The doctor says if he keeps going like this." "Ma'am," I interrupted her. "First of all, you're not my mother. Second, if Jake's in jail, it's because he earned it. And finally, don't contact me again. How can you be so cruel?" Her voice turned shrill. "You were husband and wife. How can you stand by and let him die in prison?" "If he's really sick, the prison has its own medical services," I said calmly. "And my attorney will send you a formal notification about harassment." I hung up immediately and called Mr. Thompson. He was surprised that my ex-mother-in-law had found my number and promised to investigate the source and take legal action. This incident was like a small stone thrown into a calm lake. Caused a few ripples, and then everything went back to normal. 2 weeks later, I got a message on LinkedIn from someone I didn't know. "Dear Miss Miller, I'm Irene Vance, HR Director at Nexus Corporation. I've heard about you from..." Had met with great success in Singapore. "I took the liberty of reaching out to you. We're currently looking for a marketing director with significant international experience, and I was wondering if you might be interested in returning to the US to further your career." Nexus Corporation was a real industry giant back in the States, and the marketing director position had always been my ultimate goal. But to be honest, coming back just wasn't something I was ready for. I knew it would mean facing a place full of painful memories. I sent back a courteous reply. "I am very satisfied with my current role and have no immediate plans to make a change." Irene responded almost immediately. "I understand. but this is truly a unique opportunity. The annual salary is $250,000, plus stock options, and you'd be reporting directly to the CEO. If you happen to change your mind, don't hesitate to get in touch. $250,000. Double my current salary. I just stared at the message for the longest time. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to delete it. Time just seemed to fly by, and before I knew it, I'd been in Singapore for 6 months. During that time, my team managed to land 2 major contracts. The CEO even congratulated me publicly at the annual meeting. Emily made a point of saying that I was the fastest adapting foreign employee they'd ever seen and encouraged me to apply for permanent residency. But that offer to return to the US just kept bouncing around in my head. It wasn't just about the actual position. Suddenly, I realized I was running away from the place where Jake was, where all the painful memories lived. I was running away from the weak person I used to be. One weekend, I went to Sentosa Island by myself. I sat on the white sand, gazing out at the blue sea, and it suddenly hit me that true detachment isn't about running away. It's about having the ability to face things head-on and still choose not to look back. That night, I wrote to Irene, telling her I was interested in talking more about the opportunity. At the same time, I reached out to Mr. Thompson to ask about what would happen if I did return, and whether Jake and his family would still be able to harass me. Mr. Williams is still serving his sentence, and he has at least 2 years left before he gets out, he replied. And his parents, after the warning from my firm, won't dare to bother you again. Also, your reputation in the US is excellent. Many women see you as an example of someone who stood up against domestic abuse. An example, I thought with a sad smile. I was just a normal woman who fought back when she was cornered. The interviews with Nexus Corporation went incredibly well. After a video interview, they even offered to arrange an in-person meeting in Singapore. The president of the Asia-Pacific region took me to dinner and explained the company's expansion plans in great detail. Miss Miller, we have been profoundly impressed by your career path, the president said with genuine sincerity. It's not just your professional capabilities, but the strength and courage you've shown. Those are the core values of our corporate culture. And so, after 8 months in Singapore, I made the decision to return. Emily was saddened, but she understood my choice. Follow your heart, she told me. Singapore will always be here for you. The resignation process went quickly. The CEO tried to get me to stay, offering a 30% raise, but I turned it down. It wasn't about the money. I needed to complete my own ritual of redemption. I had to go back to the place that had hurt me and start a new life with my head held high. A week before I was scheduled to return, I got a message from Chloe with some juicy gossip. Samantha cheated on your ex-husband. She went to a conjugal visit and hooked up with a family member of another inmate. They teamed up, fleeced Jake of what little he had left, and took off. I should have felt satisfied, but I felt a strange sort of melancholy. Jake, who had schemed and calculated so much, had ultimately been betrayed by everyone. Was this karma? The plane landed at JFK Airport. It was October, in the heart of autumn. Through the window, I saw the blue sky and the yellow leaves. It was a truly breathtaking sight. While I was waiting for my luggage, my phone rang. It was a welcome message from Irene. At the end, she added a note. Oh, we're having a welcome party at the company tomorrow night. The CEO wants to take the opportunity to introduce you to the team. Does that work for you? I responded affirmatively and took a deep breath. I grabbed my luggage cart and walked out of the arrival's door. The sun streamed through the glass dome, warming my face. Laura, welcome home, I said to myself. The Nexus Corporation welcome party was held in a restaurant on the 80th floor of one of the skyscrapers in Manhattan. I chose a dark red suit jacket, professional but without losing the festive spirit. Director Miller, I've heard so much about you. The CEO, Mr. Anderson, was an affable man in his late 50s. He shook my hand with just the right amount of firmness. Your case has actually been studied in my MBA class. I smiled and thanked him, a little surprised on the inside. My divorce, a business school case study? As the party got underway, I understood why. Mr. Anderson's wife, an elegant and intelligent woman, approached me. Laura, I'm Professor Eleanor Vance, a law professor at Columbia University. I also run the Center for Women's Rights Studies. Your case is a perfect example of how an educated woman can use the law to protect herself. I'm flattered, but I think you're exaggerating a bit, I said, feeling a little overwhelmed. At that moment, I was just reacting instinctively when I was cornered. Precisely that instinct is what deserves to be studied. The professor's eyes sparkled with intelligence. Too many women in similar situations choose to endure it, but you demonstrated with hard facts that the law is a powerful weapon to protect our rights. Midway through the party, a middle-aged man in a suit came up to me and introduced himself. Director Miller, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm the group's legal advisor. I've heard wonderful things about you. While we were exchanging a few words, a young woman hesitantly joined us. Excuse me, are you Director Laura Miller? She introduced herself as an intern in the marketing department and told me that my story had given her the courage to leave a toxic relationship. Seeing you here now gives me the faith to believe that I can start over too. Her eyes were full of tears. In that moment, it suddenly struck me that my story could actually have real meaning. It wasn't just my own personal story, but the story of many women who were suffering in unhappy marriages. At the end of the party, Mr. Anderson arranged for a chauffeur to take me back to the hotel. In the car, he handed me a folder. Director, this is the invitation for the business forum in Europe next month. The group has decided that you will represent us and give the opening speech. I opened it. It was the most important forum in the entire sector. Normally, only executives at the VP level or higher even attended. I don't think I have enough experience for this. Don't be modest, Mr. Anderson chuckled. Your results at the Singapore headquarters are beyond question. Besides, he added with a meaningful tone, your personal experience is a perfect fit for the theme of this year's forum, the reinvention of leadership in times of change. Back at the hotel, I couldn't sleep. Through the window, I could see the spectacular Manhattan night. It was a different kind of splendor than Singapore's. In just 1 year, my life had completely transformed, from being a disrespected wife to a senior executive at a multinational corporation. From being a victim who endured humiliation to being an example that inspired others. My phone rang. It was a message from Chloe. How are you doing? Back for your first day and already settled in? Let's catch up tomorrow. I replied with a smiling emoji. Sure. I have 1,000 things to tell you. The next day, I met Chloe for lunch at a quiet cafe. As soon as she saw me, she gave me a big hug. Wow, Director. You've got charisma radiating from you from 100 feet away. I laughed and playfully punched her arm. Stop the nonsense and tell me how your promotion to partner at the firm is going. Don't even get me started, Chloe said, waving her hand. The old guys keep saying I'm too young, but she lowered her voice conspiratorially. I just landed a huge case. Jake's mother is suing Samantha for restitution of assets. What? I almost spit out my coffee. What kind of soap opera is this? It turned out that my ex-mother-in-law was claiming that Samantha had defrauded Jake and was demanding the return of a total of $500,000 in donations. Samantha, for her part, was arguing that it was compensation for her lost youth. The two women had created a real spectacle in court. The mother-in-law was calling Samantha all kinds of names, and Samantha was firing back that she hadn't known how to raise her son. The judge was stunned. Chloe recounted, clearly amused. I shook my head. I didn't want to know any more about that farce. Jake and his disastrous life had nothing to do with me anymore. Oh, Chloe said, suddenly turning serious. I have to tell you something important. Jake might be released from jail 6 months early for good behavior. My heart skipped a beat. He'll probably be out next month. She looked at me worriedly. Will this affect your decision to come back and really thrive here? I thought for a moment and shook my head. No, New York is huge. It's not likely that we'll run into each other. Besides, the Laura I am now is not the same Laura who allowed herself to be walked all over. That's the Laura I know and love, Chloe said, raising her cup in a toast to your new life. The following days were a whirlwind. I officially took control of the marketing team and started building my own staff. I reviewed the speech for the business forum in Europe over and over again until it was absolutely perfect. On the day of the forum, I chose a royal blue, tailor-made suit. It was professional but still feminine. Standing in front of the mirror, I barely recognized the person looking back at me, confident, imposing, with a gaze full of conviction. Next, with the theme, the reinvention of leadership in times of crisis. Let's welcome the marketing director of Nexus Corporation, Miss Laura Miller. Amidst applause, I walked out onto the stage. Under the spotlights, I couldn't see the faces in the audience clearly, but that actually calmed me down. A year ago, I was in the biggest crisis of my life, I said, my voice clear and firm. My marriage was broken, trust had crumbled, and my own self-worth had been completely denied. I shared how, in the midst of that crisis, I had rediscovered myself, how I had transformed pain into the strength to grow. At the end of my speech, I said, true leadership doesn't reside in controlling others, but in controlling our own lives. When we have the courage to face our deepest fears, we discover our greatest strength. Thank you. The entire auditorium stood up and applauded. Afterward, attendees swarmed around me to exchange business cards. Among them were some real heavy hitters in the industry. Mr. Anderson, in the distance, gave me a thumbs up. His face showed the joy of having discovered a true treasure. In the car back to the company, I received a message from an unknown number. Laura, I'm out of jail. I heard you're doing great. Congratulations. Can we meet up sometime? I have so much to tell you. It was Jake. My fingers hovered over the screen. Finally, I deleted the message and blocked the number. There's no need to retrace our steps or reunite with the people we left behind. The video of my forum speech went viral and brought me some unexpected opportunities. First, interview requests from several economic magazines. Then, an invitation to participate as a commentator on a television show. Finally, a publishing house contacted me to propose writing a book on female leadership. Director, you've become the company star, my young assistant told me, smiling. The reception desk says you've been receiving a lot of flowers from admirers lately. I shook my head and asked her to instruct reception to refuse all gifts from unknown origins. Fame is a double-edged sword, and I knew that all too well. One Friday afternoon, while I was reviewing the quarterly report, Irene knocked on my door. Director, next month is International Women's Day. The Federation of Women Entrepreneurs has invited you to give a speech at a high-level forum as a representative of successful women. The CEO has already approved it. Take a look. She handed me an invitation with gold-embossed borders. It clearly stated, the growth and empowerment of women in the new era. The list of invited speakers included famous businesswomen, academics, and artists. My name was among them. Don't you think this is too much for me? I asked, feeling a little worried. Don't be modest, Irene said, patting me on the shoulder. Director, do you know what they're calling you online? The queen of the counterattack. The modern Joan of Arc. Your story has inspired so many women. That night, I video called my parents to give them the good news. My mother got emotional and couldn't stop crying. My proud father said he was going to tell the whole family to watch the live broadcast. Laura, my mother said suddenly, lowering her voice, that Jake fellow came to the house a few days ago. My smile froze. What did he want? He said he came to apologize, my father continued. The truth is, he looked very haggard and much more polite. He said he knew he made a mistake, that he didn't expect you to forgive him, but he would like the opportunity to make it up to you somehow. Mom, Dad, you didn't give him my number, did you? Of course not, my mother said quickly. Your father nearly threw him out the door. I sighed with relief and asked them, please, don't receive him again. I hung up and stood by the window, contemplating the lights of New York City. Jake's appearance had been like a small stone thrown into the calm waters of my heart, but the ripples quickly faded away. The Women's Day Forum was held with great pomp at the Metropolitan Convention Center. I prepared a speech titled, The Path of Personal Reinvention for Women, From Home to the Professional World. I shared how I had gotten out of a toxic relationship and reclaimed my self-worth. When we give others the right to define us, we lose our most precious freedom. And true empowerment begins by reclaiming that right. My voice resonated throughout the hall. Divorce isn't terrible. What's terrible is not having the capacity to get divorced. Being single isn't terrible. What's terrible is not having the capacity to live alone. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. I saw many women with tears in their eyes, including my mother. She and my father had traveled to New York especially to attend the forum. Afterward, a gray-haired woman, accompanied by an assistant, approached me. I recognized her, a famous businesswoman. "Laura, what a great speech," she said, taking my hand warmly. "Sincere stories always have the greatest strength. I hope you continue to raise your voice for women." Overwhelmed, I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. The photographer's flashes wouldn't stop, capturing the moment for eternity. That night, the photo graced the front pages of all the major economic newspapers. At the reception following the forum, I received countless cards and collaboration proposals. I was starting to feel a little overwhelmed by dealing with so many people when a familiar figure appeared at the ballroom door. It was Jake. He was wearing a badly fitting suit and carrying a bouquet of flowers, trying to sneak into the event. Security stopped him and a struggle ensued. I hesitated for a moment and then approached. "Laura." Jake's eyes lit up when he saw me. "I just wanted to congratulate you in person. You look stunning." He had lost a lot of weight and had deep, dark circles under his eyes. There was nothing left of his former self-assured demeanor. The bouquet of flowers he was holding looked cheap and pathetic. "Jake," I said calmly, "please leave. I know I don't have the right to see you." His voice cracked. "I was wrong, I truly was. Samantha ran off with all my money. My mother had a heart attack from the stress and is now hospitalized. And I lost my job. It's my karma." Seeing him cry didn't elicit any emotion in me. The wound from the past was so deep that I no longer even had the strength to hate him. "Let's leave the past behind," I said. "I wish you all the best, but don't look for me again." Jake suddenly knelt down. "Give me another chance." "Security," I turned and called out. "Please escort this gentleman out." 2 security guards grabbed Jake by the arms and dragged him toward the exit. He resisted, shouting as he turned to look at me. "Laura, you're a heartless woman after everything we've been through." Everyone in the room turned to look and began to whisper. I composed myself, raised my head, and returned to the event. My mother met me with a worried face. I hugged her gently. "Mom, I'm fine." After that night, Jake never appeared in my life again. Some said he had gone south to work in construction. Others that he had returned to his hometown to take care of his sick mother. Whatever the case, it was no longer my concern. The success of the forum continued for quite a while. My LinkedIn followers soared, and every day I received hundreds of consultation messages and collaboration proposals. The company took the opportunity to appoint me as the director of the newly created Center for Female Leadership Development and granted me an additional package of stock options. With the arrival of spring, I bought an apartment in Manhattan. On the day of the signing, I made sure the deed was solely in my name. In the empty apartment, I video called Chloe to toast virtually. "Wow, director, you're a true success story now," Chloe said on the other side of the screen while biting into an apple. "But what about love? Any news on that front?" "My job is my love," I laughed, quickly changing the subject. "Hey, what about your promotion to partner?" "Thanks to you, I got it," Chloe said, raising her glass triumphantly. "Now the old guys at the firm call me counselor." With all due respect, we toasted through the screen, celebrating our respective successes. I hung up and stepped out onto the balcony. The scent of lilacs wafted in the April air of Manhattan. In the distance, the skyscrapers of downtown stood tall. The lights shone like a galaxy. A year ago, I was still Laura, trapped in an unhappy marriage. Today, I had transformed into a butterfly, living a life I hadn't even dared to dream of before. My phone rang. It was an email from the editor at the publishing house. He was sending me the revised manuscript. My memoir, titled Rebirth, was about to be published at the end of the year. The editor suggested I add a chapter on how to build healthy relationships because, he wrote in the email, many readers will wonder if, after everything you've been through, you still believe in love. I sat down at the desk, opened my laptop, and on a blank page, I wrote a single line. "I believe in love, but I believe even more in myself." True security never comes from the promise of another, but from confidence in oneself. Outside, a crescent moon rose silently, bathing the world in its ethereal light.